How's everybody doing? Good. My name is Fred. I'm your skipper for the next 55 minutes or so. Anybody done this before?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Couple of boating rules before I pick up speed, and that is the first one, watch out for your hats. There's a breeze coming out of the northeast, cutting across the state right now, and hats can and will blow off. Every once in a while we pick up speed. No standing up. Got to stay seated the entire time. It's a huge safety issue, so please keep that in mind. 1881. Small group of businessmen came down from the Massachusetts area, and they purchased 600 acres of land around these lakes and proceeded to plan out on paper, platted it all out, had it surveyed, and then very quickly started having things built and erected, Main Street, shops, restaurants. And they turned 600 acres into a winter resort town, and that's how they sold it as. And being first in and buying the 600 acres, of course, everybody was buying land from them who took interest in wanting to reside here also. And within a couple of years, it was a lot of other very wealthy people said, yeah, I'd like to spend the winter time here too. And they bought land, or they stayed at some of the hotels, inns, bed and breakfasts that were already established and put up. Now, this is the Capon house. This was built in 1885 and built my own house. So he buys a piece of land and builds that 5,000 square foot winter cottage. But it wasn't built there on the museum property. No. It was built on the other side of the lake in 1885. And it's a historical house on the registry. And it got moved in 2013, so 13 years ago. Guy buys it, doesn't want it. He just wanted the location so he could build his own house. But a historical house you cannot demolish. You can't, scrape it off the lot. So he donates it, gives it to the museum, and they came up with a project to move it off of his property, but they owned the house. They did all the paperwork, and they split it in half and floated it across the lake in 2 trips on a barge. And it was a very cool project. 1928, the gentleman who at that time was the owner of the Sinclair Oil Company had this wonderful Spanish villa built for he and his family. And things architecturally had progressed from, frame houses like the Capon House and a certain kind of colonial style. And now Winter Park, and you'll see it as you drive around the city if you do, and definitely on this tour, there's a number of lakeside homes that are of the Spanish influence. Stucco, tile roofs, beautiful homes there. This is the Fern Canal. It's going a straight shot right on down to Lake Virginia in the distance there. That was a monarch, by the way, if I caught it right. Monarch butterfly. Anyhow, the lakes and the canals, my gosh, Lake Osceola back there, 150 acres. The one we're headed to is larger, about 250. These are all natural formations, including the canals. The canals started thousands of years ago as little creeks connecting the 6 lakes wandering through the woods. And in 1870, which was like 10 years before Winter Park, the logging industry puts a sawmill on the shores of Lake Virginia where we're going, and they took time and manpower and dug out deeper and wider the connecting creeks from all 6 lakes. Turned them into logging canals, and that's why we're in about 5 feet of water, and the width that they are too. Oak trees and pine trees, that was their target lumber back then for the building industry. A lot of construction going on in Central Florida. This is all rainwater, by the way, that we're boating in, and there's no aquifer or spring water feeding our system. Some lakes in Florida have that happening to them. But not in this lake. It's totally 100% what comes out of the clouds and the runoff thereof from the streets. And we sure could use some rain. We like to have the water, the wooden tops to these steel borders you're looking on the left here, which is what borders all the canals. They go down about 15 feet into the sand, and then they're capped with those 2x12 pressure treated lumber. And we like to have the water up at least to the bottom of the wood, if not a couple inches above it. This is Lake Virginia. It's the south lake of the chain, 250 acres in size. And that, my friends, is the campus of Rollins College. Beautiful Knowles Chapel. And that's all we get to see of it. In fact, we'll see even less of it because we're going to get closer to the shoreline. I'll tell you more about Rollins and the backstory when we get over on that side. Oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, this is a beautiful morning. I'm so lucky. Yeah. I'm not gloating about it. I'm just saying I'm retired and I get to go out on beautiful water, a nice boat, nice people. Have a great day. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes.
There's another canal right off to the left here. That little bridge goes over. It takes you right into that sparkling 50-acre lake called Lake Mizell. And it is the smallest lake compared to the 250 acres of Lake Virginia here. But the 6 estates that are built on this strip, they all have Lake Mizell as their front yard, and Lake Virginia is their backyard. The original part of this estate on the left is the slanted roof part. Now, the large wings were added on 16 years ago. The estate was on the market, and a large family buys it. And before they moved in, they got a builder, contractor, and they added those wings. I'm going with bedrooms. I'm assuming. I've never been in the place. Because they had 14 kids.
Oh, wow.
They were making space for it. Wow.
14 kids.
I mean, at what point do you put the TV back in the bedroom? 90% of the trees that you will see along the vast majority of waterways here in the state of Florida. South Florida doesn't have as many. It's more towards the north part, the mid and north part. They're called bald cypress trees. And they every year they're deciduous. They live up to the bald part. They have an evergreen needle that turns brown. It drops off in December. Now it's all back for the next year. Highly protected tree too, folks. You cannot cut them down for lumber anywhere in the state of Florida. That's been going on close to 50 years, I think. You can still get, cypress lumber if you want to do a water application, which they're great for. But it's coming from out of state. Originally, this new home, it's only about a year and a half old at best, when they were building it, the boathouse was constructed on the left side of their beachfront, just to the right of those cypress trees on the beach there. Well, guess what? The people living in that house for a long time, it's an older home, they said, oh, they just blocked the view of the lake with their boathouse. Well, they said it in such a nice way to these folks that they moved what was already standing and they built it over here. Now, what's really interesting about this boat tour that we do around 3 out of the 6 lakes is basically what we're doing, is the variety of architectural styles. I mean, the water park is the HOA, so to speak. You got to submit your plans on what you're going to do on your property, and they come out and look at everything. And so many different styles get approved, but this is a one of a kind. It's Moroccan architecture, and I think it was built right about maybe 25 years ago or so. And it's on this whole little jut out in the lake here, right around the point. It's called College Point because it's right across from the college. But It's just an interesting home to look at. I don't know any of the history. We never talk about anybody living there, so I can't give you any of the juicy details. Do I know the juicy details? Let's have a drink after work. Loose lips will sink ships. Now the campus of Rollins begins back in the corner to our left and swings around just about 80% of the north shore of Lake Virginia. And this was founded back in 1885. Folks, that's 4 years after they're literally breaking ground, designing and breaking ground this city. I mean, things were happening very quickly. And it was founded as a Christian co-ed liberal arts college. They had 60 students, folks, their opening year. And the parents of those kids had to come up with a whopping $100 a year. I know. Once again, wish we could help them out. But nevertheless, it has changed in an enormous way. One, it's way bigger than it used to be. I mean, the property is the property, but the buildings were all wooden clapboard buildings. They had about 18 or 20 of them at the beginnings. Now I think there's only 1 or 2 of the original buildings left, still functional and everything. And now it's this wonderful Spanish architecture around the whole campus. And the chapel is the centerpiece. That's the focal point. The Knowles Chapel, built in 1931. And you can visit the campus. They're on summer break there, so there's plenty of places to park. And it's a beautiful campus to walk around. It's been voted the most beautiful campus in the U.S. This year they had 2,500 undergrad, 1,200 grad students. They are rated the #1 liberal arts college in the United States. A huge accomplishment for 1-2 years in a row. Oh my gosh, they've been #1 for 21 years in a row.
Wow.
They got a system, and they know how to keep this system working real good for them. And it's very consistent from president to president to president. But it does cost. It's the highest priced one in the country at $88,000 a year to attend a liberal arts college. Now, think what you may of it. They do hand out a lot of scholarships. They have a great financial aid program. So they're very proactive with that. Anybody staying at the Alfond Inn? I'm not either. Okay, put my hand down. It's a beautiful contemporary high-end hotel here in Winter Park. Very profitable, always booked. And 100% of their proceeds goes right to the scholarship program, and that's because Rollins built the hotel in 2013, and they own it, operate it, and reap some serious rewards from it. Very smart. They're very forward thinking. There's a gentleman named Fred Rogers of the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood Friend. He was a student there from 1948 to 51, a music major, that's what he graduated with, a degree in composition, but he was a very gifted classical and jazz pianist, and a composer, as it turns out. That's why he took composition. And they're so proud of him. 6 years ago, they unveiled a statue next to the chapel in a beautiful garden setting of him, children he's talking to, all the characters from his TV show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And they just think his contribution to life was amazing. In fact, they celebrate his life every year at Rollins. They have a Fred Rogers a week. I mean, they take this guy's message to young children very, very seriously. And it's a beautiful thing because we need more of that on TV. We really do. Now, they're turning students away every year. They get way more applicants that want to be here, are qualified. They do not have the dorm space. And that problem is being solved come fall of 26. Those 4 buildings, there's 2 up front that we can see, 2 behind them, those are new dormitories. Going to be about another 1,500 students. going to be attending Rollins next year. All the water sports that happen out of that little marina back there here on Lake Virginia, but like I said, they're down for the summer, so everything's kind of all bottled up. Yep, they put all the sailboats away the other day. Had their last sail 2 days ago. Now this is the property where the sawmill sat for the logging industry back in 1870 and 1900. Today it's a lazy little park called Dinky Dock. And we have 2 boat ramps. If you got your own watercraft, come on down, open to the public. The long gray drapey stuff is called Spanish moss. And that's really kind of exactly what it's not. It's not Spanish, it's not a moss. It's an epiphyte. Or an air plant, basically. Just needs wind and rain. That's where it gets its nutrients. They say it's not doing harm to the trees. But these branches didn't look like this 8 years ago when I started. So I think it has an effect. There is a parasite that lives in the Spanish moss, like a little tiny, almost microscopic bed buggy type deal. I think that's known on the tree bark. Bamboo, not a native plant. The Spanish brought that over to our sandy shores back in the 1600s. Now, if you're not from Central Florida and you truly are really visiting from out of town, out of state, you're not going to know this. But you're going to be grateful you do know, because it's an integral part of Winter Park. First of all, this is a 50-acre private preserve, game preserve, called the Genius Preserve. Dr. Genius and his wife originally owned this property back in 1931. It's been subdivided over the years, and what's left is 50 acres, which is a natural game preserve. And one of the not natural species are peacocks. They're not a native bird. When I say not natural, they're not native to Florida or to the U.S. And in 1950, this couple happened to be Hugh McKean, president of Rollins College, and his wife, Jeanette Genius. Now, Jeanette's parents, Dr. Genius and his wife, they built that Spanish home, right? You can hardly see it through the trees. It's back on the property. And it's still all in their name. That's why it's called the Genius Preserve. And anyhow, Hugh McKean, the president of Rollins, and his wife go to India. I don't know if you know this or not, but in India, you do that 3 times. The peacock, now when I say peacock, that's the male species. Peahen is the female, peachicks are the youngins. The peacock is just like the bald eagle is to us. It is the national bird of the country, has been for centuries. Wonderful statues, artwork of the peacock, the male species, all throughout town, decal on every street sign, and that's because this couple brought back a pair of them in 1950, a male and a female, put them on that property, and that's what started the population. And by 1980, everybody was just so in love with the peacocks that they deemed it the symbolic bird of the city of Winter Park. That's why you will see a number of representations, imprints, and manhole covers on the Park Avenue sidewalks, park benches, and if you're staying at the Alfond Inn, there's some artwork of peacocks going on in those walls. Beautiful hotel, by the way, folks. Okay, enough about peacocks. Many of the original homes from the beginnings of Winter Park, what we're looking at, 99% of these homes, way after the 1880s, the 1800s, as a matter of fact, or even the early 1900s. But behind this house, this double boat house, is a home that was built in 1889 for Edward Brewer. This gentleman made his wealth as a carriage builder up in Cortland, New York. And so he's been down here checking out the growth of Winter Park as he's buying lumber from that mill on Lake Virginia, getting a good price, putting on the rail system back up to upstate New York. But then he decides to move here and he builds that Georgian home. It's got 8 bedrooms, 7 baths, 2 kitchens. There's a ballroom, but it's on the 2nd floor, taking advantage of all the open ceilings and the beautiful beams. And that's where they would host their very high society Winter Park dinner dances. Live orchestra, tuxedos and gowns, which we all still have in our closets, don't we, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Just in case. Right. You see all that fluttering going on, those little tiny birds coming in and out, and they are called purple. And they migrate every year from the Amazon rainforest area of South America. They come by the millions to Mexico, U.S., and Canada. And if we're lucky enough, they recognize these 4 birdhouses as being very friendly confines. It has a lot to do with the gourds on the bottom 4 corners. That's what they, I think, naturally nest in down in the rainforest. Very easy for tiny birds to defend a very small opening in gourds and protect the nest and the family. Now, what they're doing by flying around like that in all these erratic patterns, they're eating insects. That's their diet. They eat like 2 to 3 times their body weight in insects. Oh, but these birds, they must have been here in Winter Park for many, many years because they have a much more distinct, refined palate. They only eat mosquitoes. How they're differentiating. There are a lot of flying insects at different levels as you go up. I didn't know that. I had to learn that myself. I'm not a, what is it called? Entomologist. The people who study bugs. Still trying to figure out where that garage door is going to. Or what's going to be going in and out of it more is important. That thing's been under construction for the better part of 4 years. Piece by piece, little by little. But the one coming up on the right, on the corner, on the point, 1950. Got a great lake view, about 70–80% of the windows. White roof would have been extremely practical. 1950, there's no air conditioning. And it does help to reflect the heat. Now, 95% of the folks occupying Winter Park back in the day, they were just winter residents. They were what they called snowbirds here in the wintertime, going up north for the summer. The estate in the opening of the trees that nobody is looking at. This is the largest one, folks, that's been built so far. It's 42,000 square foot home. Goes way to the right, almost lining up with its matching boathouse a little bit to the right. The bulk of it is still behind the trees. But that is one impressive lawn ornament. That is a statue of a full-size African elephant. It's about 17, almost 18 feet tall. And I've only judged that by seeing, people, construction workers, because the elephant arrived long before the house was completely done. I mean, it was up and things were on and stuff, but they were still doing so many finishing touches, so they hadn't moved in. But they did bring the elephant over from their previous residence. They got other stuff in the backyard too. Spider, big black duck in the middle there. And behind the tree trunks there, if you can see it, that's a zebra. But they, instead of having white stripes on it, they just left it open where the white stripes would be. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That's the canal they're refurbishing. Those are the guys digging the trench on the other side of the bridge. Hi guys, how are you? But they're almost done. That's the last lake. It's about a quarter-mile long canal. It's called the Venetian. Takes you up to Lake Maitland. Now that two-story gray house with the white chimney, the white trim sitting on that little hill, that is exactly where the Capon House was built in 1885. The one that I told you about on the museum property that got floated across the lake. Yep, that's exactly where it was built. What a brilliant idea. Think about it. The guy donates it to the museum. Gee, I wonder if there's a tax write-off involved in that. And then he didn't have to pay a penny to move it off the property. That was raised by the museum and the city and some generous donations. $1.5 million to move that house. And then this guy builds his dream home. He adds the two-story guest cottage with a stack on it also, halfway down the backyard, and a boathouse. None of that was there when the Capon House was sitting up there.